Well, so far as years go, 2020 has certainly been a one-note story, COVID. It has dominated the news, and for so many, it's dominated their lives. But there's been plenty else, and some of it hasn't been all bad. Joining me now to go through some of the big moments of this year, both in Australia and abroad, is an enormously impressive panel. From lockdown on the Northern Beaches is a former Speaker of the House of Representatives and a senior minister in the Howard government, Bronwyn Bishop. And from our Perth studio, where New Year is a way off, Spectator columnist Caroline de Russo. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Catherine.
Good to be with you, Catherine.
Bronwyn, I'd like to take this right from the top. We started the year with bushfires. We saw a call out of the ADF to deal with that, and then we went into lockdown. You're a lawyer, and you have, as is Caroline, what have you made of the erosion of liberties and the constant breaching of the Constitution, which as of this afternoon seems to be in play yet again with further border closures? Are our institutions and liberties as secure at the end of this year as they should be?
No, I don't think so, Catherine. I think they're under pressure. I really think that the elevation of the premiers to the equal of the Prime Minister set a very, very difficult beginning to this whole process with the so-called federal cabinet. It's not a cabinet at all. Cabinets don't work the way that group of people work. And the problem is this, that the Commonwealth and the Prime Minister have powers. They've got quarantine powers under the Constitution. They pulled out of the Section 92 case that was brought by Clive Palmer, and the extraordinary way in which the High Court was reluctant to really take that case on. There was the possibility of doing it in Queensland. There are powers that the Commonwealth has where it can take a lead, but it just seems to me that it just doesn't want to do it. And so inch by inch, the premiers have taken more and more liberties. And now I hear commentators say, oh, well, the Commonwealth couldn't do anything. Well, that's just not right. Right back in those conventions which brought about our federation, Section 92 was put in, and that word absolutely free was put in because there was to be no misunderstanding that this was to be a federation headed by the Commonwealth government, of which the states were then subservient. So that, for instance, in the Constitution, if laws are in conflict, then the Commonwealth law prevails. So there are many ways in which the Commonwealth could act, but we're now in a situation where we seem to be a conglomerate of many countries rather than states within a Commonwealth of Australia.
Indeed, and it does in the preamble refer to one indissoluble Commonwealth, as you know, and your point about Section 109 inconsistency is well made. Caroline, you're also a lawyer. You're also deep in the heart of Western Australia, where the local thunderer over there spoke of secession a couple of times. I know not seriously, but the PM said at times he thought the National Cabinet was fragmenting. What's it been like being on the side of that hard border closure? You've been quite outspoken, I know, in terms of the traditional interpretation of the Constitution, and that must have taken some moral courage, I would have thought. Wouldn't have been a popular position in WA.
No, Catherine, it hasn't been a popular decision in WA, although that said, it is actually quite a popular decision privately, but it's something that a lot of people won't speak about. So publicly, it's not a popular position, but someone has to take it. Look, in WA, we've turned parochialism into a vocation in 2020, sadly. You know, when we look at the bushfires earlier in the year, you know, that was a great exhibition of Australians helping other Australians, you know, regardless of where you were around the country, and we all supported each other. And I feel like as we progressed into COVID, we became a lot more fragmented, and look, particularly the West Australian Premier and the Queensland Premier using COVID as a political weapon and using that parochialism as a political weapon. Look, I haven't left the state in more than 12 months. There are a lot of families that have been separated. There have been FIFO workers up in the north who haven't seen their families in months, and to use fear the way that the West Australian government has used fear to keep everyone obedient and under control. I just think is the most terribly, and I hate using the word un-Australian, but I'm going to trot it out, the most terribly un-Australian thing to do, because we are a federation, and the problem arises that the premiers are able to behave this way because, like Bronwyn touched on with the National Cabinet, the premiers have been allowed to call the shots, and the federal government has picked up the bill and all the blame, and in that point lies the entire problem, where if there was more balance of responsibility and consequences, I don't think we would have seen the premiers go as far in their parochialism and talk of succession and what have you as they've done.